I thought I'd compare top chefs' recipes for roast chicken and see which one comes out the best, but how different they are and what they give you on the plate. We've got Marco Pierre White, Heston Blumenthal. The phrase Sunday lunch in the UK conjures up a wide variety of tastes and smells. You've got your potatoes, of course, you've got your carrots, you've got broccoli, other vegetables, gravies. To everyone, it's got slightly different appeal. But it's that centrepiece that we're here for, and what better choice for a Sunday lunch than a roast chicken? Yes, roast beef is great, roast lamb is wonderful, but a roast chicken is probably a good default option to entertain a crowd. Heston Blumenthal staged at Marco's restaurant before opening the Fat Duck to get a feel for restaurant service. So let's look at Heston's method for his roast chicken. Heston adores roast chicken.
It's juicy, it's really tender, and just tastes fantastic.
He's written about it many times. Therefore, we get little variations in the recipe, depending on, I guess, what mood he's in or what audience he's trying to cater for. Today, I'm going to focus on 3 written recipes, one from In Search of Perfection, one from Family Food, and one from Heston Blumenthal at Home. All 3 methods have their similarities and differences, but the core thing that remains true throughout all of them, and these are recipes spanning over a decade of Heston's career, what they all have in common is set in the oven to a very low temperature, about 70 to 90 degrees C. Now, most domestic ovens have a marker around that point, but they're very inaccurate at that point because most people don't set their oven that. Most people don't bother reading their oven temperature until it goes above 150. Most people set this to 180 and hope for the best. Why does Heston set the temperature so low? He argues that a chicken is 80% water, and most of the battle with a roast chicken is getting some lovely colour on that bird, but not squeezing the water out like a sponge.
The problem is that the moist succulent flesh only stays moist and succulent at a lower temperature.
So by working at a low temperature, he argues that we just naturally let the chicken come up to temperature very slowly, and then we finish with a very hot blast in the oven. Again, we vary the technique here. Does it happen in the pan? Does it happen in the oven? It depends what book you read. So I'm going to amalgamate some of the recipes here and come up with what might be Heston's ultimate roast chicken. I'm using the same bird. This is a Tesco medium chicken, hardly the pinnacle of poultry rearing, but at least I'm using the same bird each time, and hopefully a fairly bog standard bird that all of you will purchase at home anyway. Now, to truss or not to truss, that is to tie up the chicken in the formal method. Again, Heston changes his mind about this over the years. I'm choosing not to truss.
Squashes the legs and the breast together, and this bit in here doesn't cook.
It's going to form a cold spot and take longer to cook. Now, using sturdy kitchen scissors or a knife, I just can't be bothered to get the chopping board out. I'm going to take off the wing and the parson's nose. I'm pretty sure roast chicken aficionados will be going crazy at me, but there is a method to the madness. I'm going to season over generously all sides of the bird and a little inside as well. And then what's really important is the internal temperature of the bird. Now, you can use any old probe thermometer. I've got a Ninja model one that you can leave in here. What we're looking for is for the thickest part of the breast to be at least 60 degrees C. I'm going to push it a little higher due to the relatively low quality of this bird. But you should follow guidelines for your country and what you feel safe with. It's also not the end of the cooking process, as we're going to cook it a second time afterwards. So I'm just going to insert that into the thickest part of the breast, and then using my phone, let me know when that's hit at least 60 degrees C. But that's going to go in my low oven. It's about 75-80 degrees. I've used my oven thermometer as well to test, and I'm just going to leave it there. I reckon that will take 2 to 3 hours. Let's find out. And while Heston's chicken cooks away, let's revisit one I did recently, and that is Marco Pierre White's method. Now, Marco Pierre White's method for roast chicken is a little bit odd. It comes from his book, his actual autobiography, devil in the kitchen. It's not described as a recipe as such. There's not a list of ingredients followed by a method with oven times and things like that. It's actually more of an anecdote. He's talking about making chicken for Sir Michael Caine, who at one point they were very good friends until they fell out over a restaurant dispute. However, the technique itself, as I said in this previous video, you can watch the whole thing up here somewhere, is a little odd. You start by vacuum sealing the bird and sous videing for about 10 minutes in quite hot water, about 85 degrees, so just under boiling. And this sous vide process is the most baffling part. I thought it was unusual. But further reading and lots of lovely and lively discussion in the comments about what this could possibly mean. People were drawn to the techniques used in Chinese cookery, when you cook duck particularly. But I think the one that holds the most water is, ironically, I think the idea that's got the most to it is the fact that it's coming up to temperature quicker. So it's kind of like a very brief poach, so that you're often told for a bird, bring it out of the fridge before cooking, so that it comes up to a temperature. It's not fridge cold, so you're not starting from a standing start. And of course the air in an oven is starting from the outside in. If you're getting it out of the fridge first, then the temperature's coming up a little bit. And it's true here. If we're going to poach it for a little bit, then the temperature of everything is coming up. Then we brown it in a pan. I find this the hardest. Browning a chicken in a pan is clumsy. It's ungainly because it's heavy on one end of your tongs or fork or whatever. Plus the shape of a bird is kind of hard. You've got roughly 4 sides to deal with, but obviously everything's rounded. So I find that a bit tricky. But nevertheless, there were plenty of comments telling me I didn't brown it enough. Whatever. After browning, it goes in the oven for just 30 minutes. And I had to guess at the temperature here, so I went for the bog standard 180 degrees C. And it came out really tasty. And I tried it without the sous vide step, and it definitely had lost something in that. So there's definitely something to be had for that sous vide stage. So my thermometer has gone off, telling me it's time to take the chicken out. And as you can see there, it's looking a little bit anemic, a little bit sad. It's kind of an ivory colour and not particularly appealing. The surface is dry, and I'm just going to double check with a standard probe thermometer, sort of mid 60s, 63, 64, and over at the leg about 70. Obviously we're going to have a little bit of carryover cooking while we let it rest, because what's going to happen now is we're going to leave this to rest for about 20 to 30 minutes. In the meantime, I've cranked up my oven as high as it will go, and that's where it will get that browning and that golden finish. And remember our chicken wings from earlier that we trimmed off the bird? Well, we're now going to fry that very gently in some butter, and that's going to make a basting juice for our bird. And after 5 minutes or so of browning, kept the heat very low deliberately, the butter's really foamy and it smells absolutely terrific. It's chicken flavoured butter. You know it's going to taste good. And you got yourself a shot of butter. I dare you. So my chicken's now rested for about half an hour, so that's going to go in the oven at a very, very hot temperature for about 10 minutes, just to brown. So our chicken has now had a final 10 minutes blast in a very hot oven. Let's see what's happened. And there we go. So we've got golden dried skin. Let's just check the temperature hasn't risen. So it's now just tipping 70, high 60s to 70 C, about 80 odd in the legs. And yeah, there's just one finishing touch. Remember our chicken butter from before? Well, this is going to find its way into the meat. And really I should be using a meat syringe for this, which has a very fine needle point, but I don't own one of those. I've got a boring old turkey baster. I'm going to poke a hole with a thermometer and then squirt juice in there. Now I'll confess you lose something of the shape by taking off the wings, but let's hope their sacrifice in making that chicken flavoured butter was well worth it. We've basically got chicken crackling now, super crisp. I'm going to try and carve that side, make life a little easier for you guys to see. I'm sure some of you will comment on the not great carving there. It's because I'm carving away from myself so you can see what's going on better. I'd rather carve this side, being a right-hander, but let's get you seeing that. And as I just squeeze it and push down on it, it oozes juice. And for the dark meat fans, let's have a look in there. Well, you can see the bone just wants to fall out. No carving happening there. Yeah, even for dark meat, bursting with moisture. Even though we're hitting 80 degrees, something like that, it's still really tasty. Yeah, moist is not the word. This is, as I said, a relatively mediocre quality bird. Not the best. There's a lovely sticky quality to the juices, you know how chicken fat is. And there's plenty of flavour. That low temperature has allowed us to not wring the water out of it. So it's really delicious. And the addition, of course, of that chicken butter just reinforces the flavour back again. Yes, fabulous flavour, particularly the texture. The texture is delicious. Another interesting method. So there we have 2 recipes by 2 3-star Michelin chefs. But which one should you cook? Well, they're 2 very different recipes. They both create really delicious chicken. Marco's has 3 stages in: the poaching, the browning, and then the roasting. Meanwhile, Heston's has the slow roasting, creating the butter, and then fast blasting. Really, there's 2 techniques, 3 stages each. Both produce great chicken. Why choose? They're both really interesting and really different. And if you're interested in cooking, I'd recommend you give both of them a try. Heston's, it's not technically difficult, and you don't have to do the chicken wing butter if you don't fancy it. You can just use the slow roast and then the high fast roast. What I particularly appreciate is not having to brown it in a pan, which, due to the nature of a chicken shape, is a bit odd. All the lumps and bumps, it's not a nice cube, or a steak, for example, which has nice sides you can sear easily. And I caught a lot of flack in the comments of my Marco video about how I wasn't able to brown it perfectly. I would recommend you give both a go, and if you've got yet another method for cooking roast chicken, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. If you've got roast chicken fans in your life, please share this video with them and see what they think. And I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch you next time.